In the Grand Archive of the Galactic Council, where the history of thousands of species was preserved in crystalline memory, one record stood incomplete: humanity. To most scholars, it was a closed chapter, a primitive civilization that perished long before achieving true interstellar capability. The official term in the database was extinct due to self-inflicted planetary collapse. Yet, among the archivists, there was a silent hesitation when that file was opened. Because even extinction had rules, and humans had never followed rules. The Irathi historians remembered their final transmissions, radio signals laced with chaos, defiance, and something alien species could never quite grasp: emotion. In their last hours, humans had not begged for mercy or called for surrender. They had laughed, sung, and promised revenge against the void that swallowed them. The destruction of Earth by the Dominion war machines was supposed to be absolute. Oceans boiled, continents fractured, the atmosphere turned to ash. No biological form could have endured that. But as the centuries passed, faint anomalies began appearing across deep space sensors, short-lived signals mimicking human neural patterns, vanishing before analysis could complete. The Council dismissed them as static echoes, but unease remained. Across the galaxy, humanity became a myth told among soldiers and travelers. They were described as reckless and emotional, weak in technology yet unmatched in persistence. Every major empire that had fought them carried scars not from human weapons, but from human refusal to die. They had adapted faster than any logic could explain. On frozen moons, they built fires from ship debris. In acid storms, they learned to breathe with filters made from torn clothing. When their fleets were shattered, they weaponized wreckage. They never stopped. It was said a human's greatest weapon was not steel or plasma, but the will to continue when nothing remained. After the war, when Earth's orbit was surveyed, all scanners agreed the planet was lifeless. Its surface shimmered with radioactive dust, and its crust groaned with tectonic collapse. The Dominion declared victory, and the galaxy moved on. For hundreds of years, not a single human transmission was heard. Trade routes reopened, new species rose, and the word human faded into old military reports, a footnote from a brutal age. Peace returned. Progress resumed. And then the anomaly pulsed again. It began as a single rhythmic signal deep beneath the Earth's ruins, one pulse every 10 seconds, weak but deliberate. The Council scientists thought it was mechanical interference, but the pattern was precise, organic, almost alive. They increased the sensitivity, filtered the cosmic background, and heard something chillingly familiar. The pulse wasn't random, it was a heartbeat. A human heartbeat. The data spread through the galactic networks like wildfire. The Dominion tried to censor it, claiming false data correlation. But more anomalies followed. Biosignatures rising from areas previously deemed sterile, faint thermal readings beneath the irradiated crust, and electromagnetic spikes matching old human encryption codes. Someone or something was waking up on a planet long declared dead. The Council dispatched a probe to confirm the readings. It transmitted images of endless wastelands, charred cities, and a sky bruised by perpetual storm. And then the probe's camera caught motion, an outline moving through the ashes, humanoid in shape, carrying a metallic staff that glowed with power. Before further data could be sent, the probe's feed cut off with a static burst that translated into one simple phrase in an ancient human tongue: "We endure." That was a moment the galaxy remembered Faye. Civilizations that once ruled the stars began re-examining their defenses. The Dominion denied involvement, but their fleets repositioned near the Sol boundary. The signal's origin pulsed stronger with each passing cycle, as if something beneath the planet's surface was gathering strength. Some said it was a ghost network of machines running on old human code. Others whispered it was humanity itself, rebuilding, regenerating. Among the archives, the chief historian updated the human record for the first time in 5 centuries. He hesitated before typing the final note. In the column where "status extinct" was written, he erased it slowly and replaced it with a single word that carried both dread and awe: unknown. And as he closed the file, the pulse echoed once more through deep space, faint but defiant, reverberating across countless star systems. It was not a cry for help, nor a call to arms. It was a declaration, a reminder to the universe that humanity had never truly vanished. They were simply waiting, learning, adapting, ready to rise again. The galaxy might have forgotten them, but they had never forgotten the galaxy. And somewhere, beneath the ruins of their dead world, the unkillable species was preparing to return. 100 years after the first pulse, the galaxy had adapted to peace. New empires rose, old wars became myths, and the stars burned quietly again. Yet within that calm, something shifted. Deep space probes along the Sol frontier began disappearing, silently, without explosion or trace. At first, no one cared. The Sol system was a graveyard, uninhabitable and forgotten. But when an Imperial research cruiser went dark 3 minutes after entering orbit around the dead planet, the galaxy's calm turned to unease. The last transmission from the cruiser showed a glimpse of something impossible, a faint light moving beneath the crust of Earth, following the ship's descent like a living shadow. When a second team was sent, they found no wreckage, no survivors, and no evidence of destruction. Only a strange metallic residue fused into the soil, as if the planet itself had absorbed the vessel. Scientists tried to analyze the compound. It wasn't metal, nor biological, but something in between, an adaptive lattice responding to stimuli. A survivor from the first mission, recovered adrift in an escape pod weeks later, muttered a single phrase before dying. They changed. The revelation spread like wildfire. Humanity had not perished. They had evolved. The radiation, the chemical storms, the shattered biosphere had not ended them. It had forged them. In the toxic winds and molten ruins, something new had emerged, post-human entities called reclaimers by later observers. They were not a new species, but the continuation of the old one. Humans who refused extinction so violently that evolution itself surrendered and followed their will. The reclaimers were taller, leaner, their skin metallic but flexible, infused with nanostructures that mimicked both machine and life. They didn't breathe air, didn't eat as others did, and their blood shimmered with quantum filaments that repaired damage instantly. But what terrified the galaxy most was not their form, it was their mind. They still remembered everything. The wars, the betrayals, the destruction, the grief of losing their home. They remembered being erased, and they were patient. When the first reclaimer vessel left Sol orbit, it didn't attack or broadcast threats. It simply drifted toward Mars, reclaiming ancient stations left behind. They restored data cores, rebuilt communication arrays, and began transmitting messages in long-dead human languages. The signal spoke of rebuilding, learning, and watching. To outsiders, they sounded like ghosts recounting forgotten prayers. But to those who decoded them, a deeper message was clear. Humanity had never died. It had adapted beyond death itself. Alien observers debated intervention. Some wanted to contact them, others wanted to eliminate them before they spread. But when an envoy ship approached peacefully, its systems were overridden by an invisible pulse, the same rhythm as the original heartbeat signal. The crew reported a presence inside their ship's AI core, not malicious, but watchful. It identified itself with a voice neither human nor machine. Do not fear. We remember who we were. We only take back what was lost. From that moment, the galaxy understood. Humanity's resurrection was not an invasion but a reclamation. They were gathering fragments, satellites, archives, lost colonies, anything that once bore the human mark. Yet wherever they went, systems malfunctioned, data vanished, energy readings spiked beyond comprehension. Entire regions became unreachable for weeks, swallowed by electromagnetic fog. And when the mist cleared, alien observers would find structures rebuilt, old human cities reconstructed in perfect silence, as if history itself was being rewritten. Whispers spread among the fleets. Humanity had found a way to merge thought with matter. Their consciousness wasn't bound to flesh anymore. It traveled through code, metal, and light. They didn't conquer planets. They simply became part of them. Radiation zones turned habitable again. Dead moons pulsed with new energy. Everywhere the reclaimers went, life followed in strange, unpredictable forms. In the Galactic Council, panic took root. If humans could rewrite extinction, what else could they rewrite? But among the youngest civilizations, fascination grew. The idea of endurance beyond logic, of evolution through sheer will, inspired them. To them, the humans were no longer monsters of the past, but proof that survival was not about dominance. It was about refusal to yield. When the Council demanded that the Reclaimers identify themselves formally, they responded once, in a message transmitted across every known channel. The words were simple, unthreatening, and devastating. We are human. We were broken, burned, forgotten. But we never stopped existing. We became the storm you left us in. We are not gods, not machines, not ghosts. We are what happens when extinction fails. The galaxy listened in silence. The message ended, and no further transmissions came. But long-range telescopes soon detected new movement within Sol. Human ships, sleek, black, and alive, were leaving orbit, not in fleets of war, but in quiet formation, heading toward the stars that once watched their downfall. The unkillable species had returned, not as conquerors, but as survivors ready to reclaim their place among the living cosmos. The first contact with the Reclaimers was not a battle, it was an awakening. Their vessels moved through the void without engines, without propulsion, gliding like living shadows that obeyed no known physics. They communicated in harmonics, not language, and their presence distorted local space-time. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session, debating containment. Fear had returned to the stars. Humanity's return was a threat to order itself, not because of violence, but because of what it represented, the failure of extinction. A coalition fleet was dispatched to the Sol border. Thousands of ships from 20 empires surrounded the system, weapons charged, demanding surrender. For days, no answer came. Then, a voice, calm, neutral, unmistakably human, replied across every frequency. We do not surrender. We have nothing left to lose. The fleets advanced. Sensors scrambled, targeting systems failed, and navigational data began looping. Ships turned without command, comms overloaded with fragments of human history, recordings of laughter, cries, the sound of rain, a child's heartbeat. The Reclaimers weren't fighting. They were overwhelming the galaxy with memory. The first fleet opened fire. Beams of plasma lanced through the dark, striking the leading Reclaimer vessel. It didn't explode. It absorbed the energy, its hull glowing brighter, transforming the attack into momentum. Within seconds, the ship vanished and reappeared behind the attackers. No counterattack followed. Instead, every enemy ship's AI began to display human words. We forgive you. It was not mercy. It was psychological domination. The galaxy realized they were fighting not against soldiers, but against a species that had mastered adaptation to the point of weaponizing forgiveness. On the third day, the Dominion deployed biological weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems. When the virus clouds reached the Reclaimer vessels, they simply disintegrated. Human nanites consumed the bioagents, reassembling them into harmless carbon dust. Every attempt to kill them made them stronger. Every tactic the galaxy had learned over millennia failed in hours. The Reclaimers were not a military force. They were evolution embodied, a civilization that treated destruction as data and pain as information to refine survival. Then came the shift. The Reclaimers began broadcasting blueprints, technologies that could heal dying worlds, restore dead ecosystems, and cure biological decay. They sent them not to empires, but to the oppressed, the forgotten, the enslaved species the Council ignored. These minor civilizations started to rise, empowered by human gifts. The balance of galactic power collapsed. The Council labeled the humans destabilizers. The lesser species called them saviors. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was divided not by territory, but by ideology. The Reclaimer's message spread across millions of systems. Survival through unity, strength through persistence, freedom through knowledge. To the old powers, it was heresy. To the young, it was hope. Rebellion sparked across star clusters. Fleets that once feared humanity now bore their emblem. The stylized spiral of DNA coiled into infinity. The humans had not just returned. They had changed the moral code of the stars. When the Council attempted to strike their homeworld again, the humans responded differently. No ships, no weapons, no retaliation. Instead, the attacking fleet systems were overridden by a single data stream. Visuals of every human civilization that had ever fallen, every species humanity had once tried to save, and finally, a simple sentence burned into every screen. You can destroy us again, but you will only teach us better how to live. The fleet stood down, not from command, but from understanding. Within months, the Sol system became a neutral zone, surrounded by fleets that no longer dared to fire. The Reclaimers expanded outward peacefully, colonizing lifeless worlds, repairing the ruins of forgotten empires. Where they went, entropy reversed. Their ships planted seeds of restoration in systems abandoned for centuries. They were no longer seen as ghosts, but as gardeners of survival. Yet even as they built, the galaxy trembled. For every civilization knew the truth. If humanity could come back from annihilation, then no one was safe from their own weakness. By the end of the decade, the Council could no longer control the narrative. Entire worlds declared independence, aligning themselves with the human philosophy of endurance over dominance. The galaxy's laws were rewritten not through conquest, but through example. Humanity had become a mirror, reflecting every civilization's fear of failure and every species' hidden will to survive. And though the Reclaimers never fired another shot, they conquered the stars in the only way that mattered, by proving that the most powerful weapon in existence was a refusal to die. Decades passed, and the galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. The wars faded into whispers, and the Reclaimers became less a threat and more a presence, everywhere yet nowhere. Their ships no longer patrolled or defended. They simply observed. They had no empire, no flag, no throne. They existed as custodians of survival, silent architects of a new order born from the wreckage of the old. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of dominance, now functioned under the Accord of Continuance, an agreement drafted by human hands and signed by every major species. Its single principle was simple: no extinction would ever be allowed again. No species, no matter how weak or small, would be abandoned to die. Humanity had turned their greatest tragedy into the foundation of universal survival. The galaxy's younger races grew under human guidance. They learned how to adapt, how to rebuild, how to endure hardship without surrender. And though humans rarely spoke, their actions became legend. Planets once barren now thrived under self-repairing ecosystems seeded by human nanobiology. Star systems that had fallen silent were reignited, their suns stabilized through fusion lattice networks left behind by Reclaimer engineers. Where once the universe had known only conquest and decay, now it witnessed restoration. Humanity had not merely survived. They had taught existence itself to heal. Yet beneath the quiet progress, a question lingered. What had humanity become? The Reclaimers had long since transcended flesh. Their consciousness flowed through data, metal, and quantum memory. But at their core, they still called themselves human. Their voices, soft, distant, but unmistakably emotional, continued to echo across the stars, reminding all who listened that they were not gods, not machines, just beings who had learned to live beyond limits. For the first time in galactic history, mortality was not a weakness but a philosophy. To live, fall, and rise again was no longer the curse of mankind. It was their greatest gift to the universe. When the last generation of the Old Dominion finally died, no one celebrated. Humanity did not take revenge, nor did they erase their former enemies from memory. Instead, they preserved their history, every battle, every atrocity, every mistake, within vast crystal archives that floated in orbit around Earth's remains. Those archives became open to all, a monument not to victory, but to understanding. The galaxy visited them like pilgrims seeking truth. They walked through holographic projections of Earth as it once was. Oceans, forests, storms, and cities filled with laughter. They saw the moment of its destruction, and they saw what came after, the pulse, the awakening, the rebirth. In silence, they realized what made humanity unkillable was not technology, not biology, but meaning, the refusal to let despair define existence. Over centuries, humanity spread far beyond Sol. They no longer colonized planets, they merged with them. Entire worlds pulsed with the rhythm of human consciousness, guiding ecosystems like living minds. They traveled as thought, as energy, as fragments of will. In some corners of the galaxy, they appeared as voices carried by the wind, in others as spectral lights drifting between nebulae. To the untrained eye, they were myths again, stories told to children about the ghosts who saved the stars. But for those who had seen them, there was no doubt. The unkillable species was still among them, watching quietly, ensuring the universe never forgot what resilience truly meant. Centuries later, a new historian, not human but born of a world restored by human hands, opened the galactic archive to update its records. The human entry still read status, unknown. He hesitated, feeling the weight of 1,000 years of change, and added a single note: humanity is not lost. Humanity is what remains when loss is endured. As he confirmed the entry, the archive flickered, and a familiar pulse moved through the data stream, a single, soft heartbeat echoing across the galaxy. It was not a message, not a warning, just a reminder that life endures because someone once chose to. That even when flesh fails and worlds fall silent, the will to exist can outlive everything. The heartbeat faded into the void, but every receiver in the known universe recorded it, a synchronized moment of understanding shared among countless minds. Humanity had transcended death, not by escaping it, but by redefining it. They had become the bridge between what lived and what endured. And so, in the end, the galaxy did not fear humans anymore. It honored them. Statues and digital monuments across 1,000 worlds bore the same inscription, simple yet eternal: to the species that refused to die. Humanity had no throne, no empire, no need for worship. Their victory was quieter, deeper, and absolute. They had proven that existence itself could evolve around willpower. Long after their last physical body dissolved into dust, the pulse of their persistence remained woven into the fabric of the cosmos. The unkillable species was never gone. They had simply become part of everything that survived.